I've never been the type to overthink things. I have a simple life, steady job, decent house, and a wife I thought I could trust. But trust isn't something you realize you've lost until it's already gone. I didn't notice the shift at first. It started with little things. Lucy seemed distant, her usual warmth replaced by coldness. Her smile felt forced, her laugh muted. We'd been together for 5 years, and I knew her well enough to spot these subtle changes. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe she was stressed from work. Maybe I wasn't giving her enough attention. Life gets busy. But the longer it went on, the more uncomfortable I felt. There was a shift in her behavior. She started disappearing into the bedroom more often, her phone always in hand. She'd be on it late at night, face lit by the screen, her fingers moving quickly across it. When I asked her who she was texting, she'd offer vague answers, and I'd back off. I didn't want to come off as possessive or paranoid, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. One Friday night, I came home from work earlier than usual. It wasn't late, but when I stepped inside, I was met with an unsettling silence. The house was darker than usual, like she wasn't here, even though I knew she'd been home earlier. I called out her name. No response. The house was too still. I checked the kitchen, the living room, empty. I walked down the hall, feeling the tightness in my chest grow. The door to the bedroom was ajar. I pushed it open, half expecting to find her, maybe lying on the bed or changing clothes. But the room was empty. Her shoes were gone, no sign of her jacket or purse. But then, on the bed, I noticed 2 glasses of wine, one half full, the other untouched. It didn't make sense. She wasn't expecting anyone, and she didn't drink wine on her own much. Something felt off. I glanced at the closet, saw it empty of her coat. My stomach twisted. I should have left it alone, but I didn't. I decided to check the study. Lucy had a habit of retreating there when she wanted quiet, so it was the next logical place to look. I walked down the hall, the sound of my own footsteps louder than usual in the silence. When I reached the study, I saw the light spilling from under the door. I stopped outside. Something was wrong. I wasn't sure what it was, but I had this feeling, a sinking feeling, that I shouldn't open the door. But I did. What I saw inside froze me. There, in the middle of the room, was my brother, Jason. He was sitting in the chair by the desk, talking to Lucy. Their voices were low, like they were sharing something private, something meant to stay between them. I stood there, paralyzed. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Jason, my older brother, the one I trusted with anything, was sitting too close to Lucy. I could feel the tension in the room, even though they hadn't noticed me yet. Lucy was leaning forward, her body angled toward him, her face soft and intimate in a way I'd never seen before. She wasn't talking to him like she would a friend. No, this was different. Her eyes were fixed on him with a gaze I recognized all too well. It was the same gaze she used to give me when we were newly married. I took a step back, but the floor creaked under my feet. They both turned to look at me, and in that moment, time seemed to stop. Jason's eyes widened with surprise, and Lucy's face froze, like a deer caught in headlights. The room fell into an unnatural silence. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I stood there, unable to process what was unfolding before me. My brother, my wife, in my house, in this moment of raw, undeniable truth. Lucy opened her mouth, but nothing came out at first. She stood up quickly, almost nervously, like she wasn't sure what to say. Jason didn't speak either. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing at me and then at her. My heart pounded in my chest, but I still couldn't find the words to confront them. I looked at them both, at the people I thought I knew better than anyone. But in that moment, I realized I didn't know anything. The silence stretched on, suffocating, until Lucy finally spoke. But her words weren't an apology. They weren't an explanation. They were nothing. And I still didn't know what to do. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room felt thick, like it was closing in on me. I had just walked in on my wife and my brother, caught them in the middle of something I couldn't deny anymore. But I couldn't move. My legs felt like concrete. My mind was scrambling, searching for something, anything, to make sense of it. Lucy's eyes were wide, but there was no apology in them, just fear. Jason didn't even look at me. He stood there, his shoulders tense, like a man who already knew the inevitable was coming. "What the hell is going on?" I asked, the words coming out slower than I wanted. My mouth was dry, but I needed to know. I had to hear it from them. Lucy opened her mouth, then closed it again. She didn't know how to explain it. She didn't have the words for it. My brother was still silent, his gaze focused on the floor, like he was waiting for something, waiting for me to hit him, or for me to leave, or for something to happen. "Are you sleeping with him?" I said it, as if I wasn't even sure I could believe my own question, but I had to hear her say it. Lucy winced, but she didn't deny it. "I didn't want this to happen like this." Her voice was small, barely audible, but I heard it all the same. The truth hung there, heavy. I wanted to shout, to throw something, to demand every detail. But I didn't. I just stood there, numb, waiting for her to continue. "How long?" The words were barely a whisper. I didn't want to hear the answer, but I needed to know. She didn't hesitate. "Months." Her voice cracked as she said it. But the sting of the admission didn't change anything. Months. All that time, all those hours I spent thinking we were fine, thinking she was still mine. Jason shifted, uncomfortable, but said nothing. He couldn't even look at me. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. Months. How many of those months had I spent completely blind to what was going on right under my nose? I turned to Jason. "My own brother." I felt the heat rise in my chest. Betrayal doesn't even begin to cover it. "How could you?" "I didn't mean for this to happen," Jason said, his voice strained. "I swear I didn't want to hurt you." But it was too late for that. The damage was already done, and there was no way to fix it. I looked at Lucy. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging for forgiveness. She just stood there, eyes down, like she couldn't meet my gaze anymore. Maybe she couldn't. Or maybe she didn't want to. She was a stranger to me now. "You didn't want to hurt me," I said, my voice rising. "Then why the hell did you do it? Why did you let it go on?" She flinched, but didn't answer. There was nothing she could say. There was no excuse that could make this right. I looked at them both, two people I had trusted with everything, and felt a pit form in my stomach. They hadn't just betrayed me, they'd shattered everything I thought I knew. I turned away from them, suddenly unable to breathe in that room any longer. I didn't want to be there anymore. I needed space, air, anything to get away from this suffocating reality. I walked out of the house, out into the cold night. The quiet darkness wrapped around me like a blanket, but it didn't bring comfort. It only deepened the emptiness inside. Out on the porch, I stood still, trying to collect my thoughts, but nothing made sense. I tried to piece together the moments, the years we'd spent together, but everything felt fractured now. The life we'd built? A lie. The love I thought we had? A farce. I couldn't stop the images from flooding my mind. Lucy and Jason, close, too close, the way she looked at him, like she had looked at me when we first met, the way they shared something I wasn't a part of. I wanted answers. I needed closure, but nothing I asked would ever change what they'd done. There was no coming back from this. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't check it. I didn't want to know. It could have been Lucy or Jason trying to explain. It didn't matter. They had already said enough, and nothing could undo the mess they'd made. I was standing in the cold, but inside I was colder, and I didn't know what came next, but I knew I couldn't go back. I stood in the dark, trying to steady my breath, but nothing felt real anymore. I had just walked in on my wife and my brother, together, in my own home, and I didn't know what to do with that. I needed answers. I needed to understand how everything I thought I knew could be so wrong. But every part of me wanted to shut down. I didn't want to hear excuses, didn't want apologies. I just wanted to make sense of the mess they'd made. I walked back inside, dreading what I might find. Lucy was standing in the hallway, not looking at me, her back stiff. Jason was gone. The space between us felt too wide to cross, but I couldn't leave it like this, not without a confrontation. "Lucy," I said, my voice raw. She didn't move. "Look at me." She turned slowly, her eyes swollen. I hated the sight of her like this. I hated that she was hurting, but I hated what she had done even more. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. I clenched my fists. "You don't know what to say? How long, Lucy? How long were you lying to me?" Her silence cut deeper than her words ever could. She stepped back, eyes darting to the floor. I could feel the weight of the lie hanging between us, suffocating everything. "How long?" I repeated, demanding the truth, even though it felt like it might break me. Her eyes finally met mine. "Months." I felt the blood drain from my face. Months? All that time I'd been blind. I had been living a lie. Jason was my brother, my flesh and blood, and he betrayed me. But Lucy, she'd chosen him over me, over us. Why? I asked, barely able to make the word come out. Why him? I don't know, she said, her voice breaking. It was never supposed to happen like this. I wanted to scream, to throw everything I could get my hands on, but I didn't. I stood there, numb. I couldn't even look at her anymore. I turned away. How could you do this to me? To us? I didn't want to hurt you, she said, her voice cracking. I never wanted this. She didn't get to decide that. She didn't get to choose how I felt. Not now, not after what she'd done. She didn't get to tell me it was just a mistake. It wasn't. It was betrayal. Then why didn't you stop? I said, my voice rising. Why did you let it go on for months? I don't know. I was confused, she said, her tears falling freely now. I never meant to hurt you, Ryan, I swear. But the damage was done. No apology could erase it. I was done listening to her excuses. I walked toward the door. I needed air, space. I had to get out of this house before I lost my mind. Where are you going? Lucy asked, her voice desperate now. I don't know, I muttered, not turning around. But it's not here. The door slammed behind me and I stepped into the cold night. The emptiness of the world outside felt like a small relief. At least the silence was honest. I walked aimlessly, not knowing where I was going or how long I'd be gone. The cool air did nothing to calm the storm inside me. Every step I took felt like a step further away from the man I used to be, the man who trusted his wife, his brother. Now, all I felt was broken. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, expecting to see texts from Lucy, maybe even from Jason. But there was nothing. No calls, no messages, as if they were both trying to avoid the inevitable. I sat down on a bench by the park, looking out at the empty streets, feeling like an alien in my own life. I didn't know what to do next. Everything felt fractured, and no matter how hard I tried to hold on to something, anything, it all slipped through my fingers. I thought about going home. But what was home anymore? A house full of memories, now tainted by their betrayal. I didn't want to face her. I didn't know if I could. I couldn't trust her. I couldn't trust him. I didn't know where to go from here. For the first time in a long time, I was completely lost. I didn't know how long I'd been walking, but when I finally stopped, the cold hit me like a slap. I had no direction, no destination, just a need to get as far from my life as possible, even if just for a few hours. I didn't want to think about Lucy. I didn't want to think about Jason. But they were all I could think about. The betrayal, the lies. It churned in my gut like acid. I ended up at a bar down the street, the familiar neon lights offering a kind of dull comfort. The bartender, Tom, nodded when he saw me. I didn't need to explain myself. He poured the whiskey without asking. I didn't drink to forget. I drank because I couldn't do anything else. The whiskey burned, but the anger inside me didn't fade. It was like a fire that wouldn't go out. I looked at the glass in my hand. It seemed so small, so insignificant. But in that moment, it felt like the only thing that made sense. I'd always believed that people made mistakes, but this, what Lucy and Jason had done, this wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head. The silence in the house when I walked in, Lucy's guilty eyes, the way Jason had barely looked at me. There was no easy answer. There was no way to fix it. Tom came by with a new drink. I nodded but didn't speak. He didn't need me to. He'd seen it before. The broken man, the one who comes in, orders a drink, and never says a word. I tried to focus on the whiskey, tried to numb the anger, the betrayal, but it didn't help. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't need it. I just wanted to be alone with my thoughts, and even that felt impossible. I pulled out my phone, expecting messages from Lucy, maybe an apology, but it wasn't her. It was Jason. Ryan, I'm sorry. I never wanted this. Please, let's talk when you're ready. I read it once, then again, then a third time. His words were empty. Sorry wasn't enough. I could feel the anger rising again, but this time I wasn't sure if it was aimed at him or at myself. How had I not seen it? How had I been so blind? I put the phone down and stared into my drink, letting the silence stretch out. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to hear anything from either of them. Nothing they said would change what had already happened. I stayed in the bar longer than I meant to, but eventually the need to leave became stronger than the need to stay. I paid Tom and stepped back into the night, but it didn't feel like it would be any better than when I walked out of the house earlier. I walked through the empty streets, trying to clear my head, but it was impossible. My life felt fractured. I had known Lucy for so long, shared so much with her, and now it was all a lie. Jason had been my brother my whole life, and now that relationship felt broken too. I found myself sitting back on the bench at the park, the same spot I had been earlier. It seemed like the only place that gave me any space to breathe. I pulled out my phone again, half hoping I'd missed a message from her, even though I didn't know what I would say if I saw one. I checked my inbox. There it was. Ryan, I'm sorry. I love you. Please, let's talk when you're ready. I stared at the message, the words blurred, my thumb hovering over the reply button. What was I supposed to say? That I was still angry? That I wasn't ready to forgive her? But there was something else, too. A tiny flicker of the person I used to be, the one who still cared, who still wanted things to work. But I couldn't do it. Not now. Not yet. I wasn't ready to talk. I wasn't ready to make any decisions. I put my phone back in my pocket. I didn't respond. The night felt colder now, and the weight of everything was sinking in. I had no answers. I had no plan. I didn't know what would happen when I went back home, or if I even could. I just knew that for now, I needed to be alone. I stood up, the tension in my shoulders tight, and started walking again. I wasn't sure where I was going, but maybe that was the point. I needed to move. I needed to keep going, even if I didn't know what lay ahead. I didn't want to go back inside, but there was nowhere else to go. The door opened with a creak, and the quiet hit me like a wall. The house, our house, felt empty, lifeless. It wasn't just the silence, it was everything that had changed. I walked through the living room, my feet dragging. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. The couch, the pictures on the walls, they used to be familiar. Now they were just reminders of a life that was no longer mine. I stopped outside the bedroom door. It was open, but I couldn't make myself go in. I was afraid of what I'd find, afraid of seeing Lucy and not knowing who she was anymore. I knocked softly. She didn't move at first. Then, slowly, she stood up, her face pale and streaked with tears. She looked broken, and I hated it. I hated that she had put me in this position, that we were here now, with no easy answers. "Ryan," she whispered, "I've been waiting for you." I said nothing. I couldn't find the words. The anger was still there, but it had turned into something colder. Numbness. I felt disconnected, like I was outside my own life, watching it all fall apart. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaky. "I never meant to hurt you." "You've already hurt me," I replied, my voice flat. "This isn't about sorry anymore." She looked down, tears still falling. "I never wanted this. I swear I didn't." "But you let it happen," I said. "You chose him. You chose to keep this from me. Why?" "I don't know," she choked out. "I was confused, lost. It was a mistake." A mistake. The word tasted bitter. "You don't get to call this a mistake, Lucy. You destroyed everything, and I don't know how to fix it." "I didn't want to destroy us," she said, barely above a whisper. "I never wanted to lose you." "Well, you did," I said, the words cutting through the air. I felt the weight of them as soon as they left my mouth, but it was true. She had lost me. I couldn't stand looking at her anymore. The sadness in her eyes, the guilt, it was all too much. I wasn't ready to hear her apologize again, to hear her beg for forgiveness. I needed space. I needed distance from all of it. "I need time, Lucy," I said, turning away. "I need space to figure this out." I didn't wait for her response. I couldn't. I walked out, leaving her standing there, alone. The door clicked shut behind me, and I didn't look back. The night air hit me like a slap. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just needed to get away from that house, away from the betrayal that hung in the air like smoke. I ended up at the park, sitting on the same bench I had earlier. The city was quiet, almost too quiet. I pulled out my phone and checked for messages. There was one from Jason. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I never meant for this to happen. Please talk when you're ready." I stared at the screen, numb. I couldn't process it. I couldn't forgive him either. His apology didn't change what they'd done. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I put the phone back in my pocket and sat in the darkness, my mind racing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I could ever forgive Lucy. I didn't know if I wanted to. But I knew I couldn't stay in that house. Not tonight. Not with everything hanging in the balance. I stood up, not sure where I was headed, but needing to move. There was nothing else to do but keep going, one step at a time. The hours passed without me realizing. I'd walked around the city, through empty streets, until the dawn was breaking. I found myself at a 24-hour diner, nursing a cup of coffee I didn't want. I didn't even care about the taste. It was just something to do while my mind raced in circles. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't even tired. I just needed a moment where I didn't have to face the aftermath of everything that had happened. The quiet hum of conversation in the background felt distant. I wasn't here. I wasn't anywhere. My thoughts kept returning to one question. What now? I checked my phone. There were messages. Jason, of course. His name on the screen twisted my stomach. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I never wanted this. Please talk when you're ready." I read it once, then again, but it didn't matter. No apology would fix this. No explanation would undo the damage. I tossed the phone back into my pocket, staring at the dim light from the diner's sign outside, feeling it burn into my eyes like everything I had been avoiding. After a while, I paid for the coffee and left. The early morning air was cooler than I expected, but I barely felt it. I wasn't running from the cold. I was running from the weight that had settled in my chest. I needed to go home. I knew that. But not yet. I walked back, each step heavier than the last, until I found myself standing in front of the house. I stood there for a long time, trying to summon the strength to walk through the door. It felt wrong to walk back inside. It felt like I'd be walking into a life I didn't know anymore. Finally, I opened the door. It was silent. No footsteps, no voices. I felt a coldness in the house now, like everything had frozen. I moved slowly through the hallway. The living room, where we'd spent so many evenings together, felt strange. The pictures on the walls, the worn couch, it all seemed so distant. I felt like an intruder in my own home. I stopped outside the bedroom. The door was cracked open, and I could hear soft sounds coming from inside. Lucy, waiting for me, no doubt, just as she had been all night. I knocked once, then stepped inside. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking small and fragile. Her eyes were red. She looked up at me, her expression a mixture of guilt and fear. "I didn't think you'd come back," she said quietly. I didn't answer. There was nothing to say that would make any of this better. Nothing that could erase the betrayal, the lies. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." Her words felt hollow. "Sorry doesn't fix anything, Lucy," I said, my voice flat. "It's too late for sorry." She lowered her gaze, tears spilling onto her cheeks. "I never meant to destroy what we had. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Then why?" I asked, finally letting the frustration break through. "Why keep it from me? Why hide it? Why let it go on?" She wiped her face, sniffling. "I don't have an excuse. I was lost. I made a choice that I regret more than anything. But I never wanted to lose you." I shook my head. "You've already lost me, Lucy. You don't get to hurt me like this and expect everything to go back to normal." "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered, barely audible. I don't know what happened. I was confused." "Confused?" The words stung. "You think this is just some confusion. You and Jason, you've broken everything. I don't know how to fix this." Lucy didn't say anything else. She just stared at the floor, her hands shaking. I couldn't stand to look at her anymore. I needed distance. I needed space. I needed a break from everything. "I need time," I said, my voice steady but firm. "I don't know what's next, Lucy, but I can't do this right now." She nodded, tears slipping silently down her face. She didn't beg. She didn't try to stop me. She just let me leave. I stepped out of the room, feeling like I was suffocating in the space between us. The door clicked shut behind me, and I stood in the hallway, unsure of what to do next. I couldn't go back to the living room. I couldn't stay in this house, not now. I needed to leave again. I didn't know where I was going, but it didn't matter. I walked back out into the night, the cool air biting at my skin. It wasn't enough to make me feel alive, but it was something I could focus on instead of the mess I was drowning in. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know if I wanted to. All I knew was I couldn't stay here, not yet. I needed time to think, time to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with my life now. The city was quiet, empty, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for something to break. I had walked aimlessly for hours, but the cold air couldn't numb the thoughts rattling in my head. I was tired of being angry, tired of being confused, but most of all, I was tired of not knowing what to do. I ended up at a park, sitting on a bench, staring into the empty space around me. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. I couldn't escape the images of Lucy and Jason. Together, it was like a loop in my mind, a constant reminder of the betrayal I couldn't shake. I pulled out my phone, but this time I didn't check for messages. There was nothing either of them could say that would change anything. The words, the apologies, they didn't mean anything anymore. Not now. I sat there for what felt like hours, just lost in my own thoughts. It wasn't anger anymore. It was numbness, a quiet, suffocating numbness. I couldn't stop thinking about Lucy's face, her eyes, her tears. She looked broken, and part of me wanted to fix it, to make things right again. But I didn't know how. I didn't know if I could. Eventually, I stood up, the decision weighing heavier than before. I couldn't keep running. I had to go back. I had to face her. I didn't know what I would say, or if I even had the strength to say it, but I couldn't keep avoiding the reality of it all. By the time I got home, it was dawn. The first light of the day was just breaking, casting a faint glow over everything. I stood outside for a moment, taking a deep breath. There was no going back. I had to face her, face the mess we were in. I opened the door, stepping inside. The house felt cold, empty. Lucy was sitting on the couch, her eyes red, her body tense. She didn't look up when I walked in, but I could feel the tension in the room. "Ryan," she whispered, "I didn't think you were coming back." I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure what to say. My mind felt like it was still caught in a storm, but I had to speak. I had to say something, or else we'd both stay stuck in this silence forever. "I'm here," I finally said, my voice flat. "But I don't know what to do. I don't know how to move forward." She looked up at me, her eyes full of uncertainty. "I don't know either," she said softly. "But I need to know if you can forgive me, if you think we can still fix this." Her words hung in the air. Could I forgive her? Could I even trust her again? I didn't know. Part of me still loved her, but another part, maybe a bigger part, felt like the damage was too deep. Could I really rebuild everything we had? I didn't know if I could. "I don't know if I can," I said honestly. "I don't know if I can ever trust you the way I did. You and Jason. It's all too much. I don't know if it's fixable." She didn't fight me. She didn't try to change my mind. She just nodded, tears spilling down her face. She had already said everything she could, and so had I. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, her voice breaking. "I know you are," I said, my chest tight. "But I need time. I need space to figure out if this is something I can move past. I can't make any promises right now." She nodded again, not saying anything more. She didn't beg. She didn't try to convince me. She just let the silence settle between us, as if she knew there was nothing else to say either. I turned and walked out of the room. I didn't feel any lighter. I didn't feel any closer to the answers I needed. All I knew was that I couldn't stay in that room with her. Not yet. Not until I could figure out what came next. I stepped outside again, the cool air still sharp against my skin. The world was waking up, but I was still stuck in the dark. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if I could forgive her. I didn't know if we could fix this, but one thing was clear. I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. I had to make a choice, and I wasn't ready to make it yet. The days blurred together. I went through the motions, work, meals, sleep, but it all felt hollow. My mind kept returning to one thing. What now? I couldn't stop thinking about Lucy, about Jason. The betrayal felt like a weight I couldn't shake. I spent more time outside, hoping the air would clear my head. But nothing worked. Every time I tried to push the thoughts away, they returned, sharper than before. Could I forgive Lucy? Could I ever trust her again? Could I face Jason without feeling disgusted? I wasn't sure of anything. That night, I came home to an empty house. Lucy was out, leaving the door cracked. The silence was deafening, and the house felt colder without her. I stood in the doorway, debating whether to go upstairs. But what would I say? What could I say? I sank into the couch, feeling the weight of the silence. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I needed to talk to her. I needed to figure out if this was something worth saving, or if I had to walk away for good. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Lucy. "Ryan, I know you need space, but when you're ready, I want to talk. I don't want to lose you. Please let me explain." I read it twice, but it didn't matter. I didn't want an explanation. I wanted something more than apologies. I wanted to know if we could move forward, or if this was the end. I leaned back, closing my eyes for a moment. Everything felt stagnant. I didn't know if I could move past this, if I could rebuild, but I couldn't keep waiting for clarity. I had to make a choice, even if I wasn't ready. I grabbed my coat, stepped outside, and walked aimlessly down the street. The cool air bit at my skin, but it didn't numb the ache inside. I needed space, time, something to cut through the fog in my mind. But there was no escaping it. I couldn't stay in limbo forever. Arbitra didn't know how long I'd been walking, but when I stopped, the sky was lighter. The world felt too quiet, like it was waiting for something. I hadn't made any decisions. I was still lost in the fog, circling the same thoughts over and over, but I knew one thing. I couldn't keep avoiding it. I went back to the house. Lucy's car was in the driveway, and I knew she was inside, waiting for me. The door was closed, but it felt like it was still open. I stood outside for a moment, hesitating, wondering what I was about to walk into. Inside, Lucy was sitting in the living room. Her face was pale, eyes red. She looked up when I walked in, but didn't say anything. She just watched me, as if she was waiting for me to speak first. I stood in the doorway, trying to steady myself. The weight of what I had to say was unbearable. I couldn't pretend this was something simple. It wasn't. Nothing about this was simple. "I've been thinking," I said, my voice quiet, "and I don't know if I can forgive you." Her face tightened, but she didn't speak. She didn't try to interrupt me. She just sat there, listening, probably already knowing what was coming. "I can't forget what you did," I continued, pacing now. "What you and Jason did. I don't know if I can look at either of you the same way again, and I don't know if I can ever trust you like I did." I stopped, breathing heavily. I didn't want to feel this way. I didn't want to give up. But the hurt was too deep, and the question kept echoing in my mind. What's left? Lucy wiped her eyes, but she didn't say anything at first. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she said softly, "but I need you to know how sorry I am. I never wanted to hurt you." "I know," I said, shaking my head, "but sorry doesn't fix this. It doesn't change what happened." We both sat in the silence for a long moment, the weight of everything pressing down on us. I wanted to walk away, but part of me still held on. Maybe that was the hardest part, knowing that no matter how bad it hurt, I wasn't ready to let go completely. "I need time," I said finally. "I need more time to think about what's next." She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "I understand." The silence stretched between us again, but this time it felt different. There was no more pretending. We both knew what the truth was. Days passed. Each one felt heavier than the last, as if I were carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. Lucy gave me the space I needed, but every time I walked through the door, it felt like I was walking into a ghost of my past. The house was the same, but nothing felt right. I didn't know what I was looking for anymore. I didn't know if I was looking for redemption or just for closure. I spent most of my time in the same pattern: work, a drink, sleep, like I was trying to numb myself to everything around me. But it didn't work. The pain, the betrayal, it was still there, lurking beneath the surface. And then one evening, after another long day of running from the truth, I found myself standing in the kitchen. Lucy was there, quietly washing dishes. She didn't speak when I entered, but I could feel her presence in the room. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, with everything we hadn't said. I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to say. I could still feel the tension from everything that had happened. I wanted to reach out, to try again, but I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. "I've made up my mind," I said, my voice tight. "I can't keep doing this." She stopped washing the dishes and turned to face me. Her eyes were filled with quiet fear, as if she already knew what was coming. "I've thought about it," I continued, my chest tight. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." She lowered her gaze, her hands still gripping the edge of the sink. "I understand," she whispered. "I want to move on, Lucy," I said, each word harder than the last. "I want to find peace again. I don't know how to do that with you in my life. Not like this." The silence that followed felt like a chasm. I could see her fighting back tears, but she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just nodded, as if she had been expecting this moment all along. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but the words felt too little, too late. I took a deep breath. "I am too." I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her behind. It wasn't the way I wanted things to end, but it was the only way I could move forward. I knew it was over. I knew I had to let go, even though every part of me wanted to hold on. The door clicked shut behind me as I stepped out into the night, finally feeling the freedom of a decision I had been putting off for too long. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't stay in the past, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope.